we are talking with Tracey Roberts, who has interesting Boston connections. She's going to tell us about that, but she was an advisor to Pixar for the new film Inside Out 2. And Tracey, thanks so much for doing this. Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for having me.
So tell us about your background.
Let's see. So I grew up in the Boston area.
Hmm.
My dad was a hockey player.
Yeah.
I went off to Tabor Academy my junior and senior year, and then played hockey at Colby College up in Central Maine because they have
Wow.
the oldest women's hockey teams in the nation.
Amazing. What class were you in?
I cannot, late 80s.
Late 80s. And so, girls ice hockey is so popular now. At that stage of the game, I would imagine, because your dad had been a hockey player at BC. And what was his first name?
Arthur Roberts.
Arthur Roberts, which who a lot of people might remember. It was not as common for girls to play ice hockey in those days, right?
Not common at all. I was the only girl on my high school team.
Wow. Oh wow. So you played on a boys team.
Yes, and we were playing in a prep school league. So all of the other teams we were playing, a lot of them were all boys teams. So they actually didn't even know I was a girl. I put my hair up in my helmet.
So interesting. And so let's just talk right out of the bat about how did Pixar approach you, or were you in contact with them?
Well, I was already working at Pixar. I'm at Pixar as a character
Hmm.
team. And the supervisor for the characters team had heard that I
Mm.
coached. I coached for the Oakland Bears in Oakland, California.
Wow.
And the San Jose Sharks actually are kind of like the parent of that group. So I
Amazing.
work at Pixar and I work for the Sharks.
Amazing. So how did you find your way from playing hockey at Colby College in New England to Pixar and the entertainment industry in California?
Yeah, when I graduated Colby, I was absolutely in love with animation and I wanted to
Yeah.
work in animation. Couldn't afford to go to graduate school. I did a short-term internship with a stop motion company and I had done sculpture in college. So I got that job and then I knew that all the animation was happening in the Bay Area. So I moved out to the Bay Area.
Wow. That's
Started,
amazing. So was this early 90s?
yes.
And
Yeah.
so that's really when Pixar was emerging.
Yes. Yeah. So I've been at Pixar about 3 years now. I
Good for
worked
you.
at Industrial Light and Magic, Tippett Studios, Digital
Wow.
Domain. So
Interesting. I
yeah,
always find it fascinating. Women who end up very successful or in leadership positions, I find, had in many cases, a very strong father who was
agreed.
very invested in them
Yeah.
as daughters. And
Yes.
alongside of that, here where you were encouraged to play sports and a sport that was unusual for girls at the time, what do you think that gave you? What did that teach you?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was a crucial, like, giant figure in my world, and
Yeah.
he would drive from Boston to every single one of my hockey games. So he
Isn't
would,
that great?
yeah, he would drive to Maine. He would go to Middlebury. You every game I had, he was always there. And he taught me, you have to work hard. Nobody's ever gonna take care of you or support you. You need to do this on your own. Um, he was he was a huge proponent for women's hockey. And
Mm,
yeah, and just he was like a giant man. He
wow.
absolutely loved ice hockey. And I think that being, playing on men's teams helped me because early in the industry in animation, a lot of the people that I work with was primarily men.
Yeah,
That's
well, right. And I have to ask, did you have any brothers?
I had one brother. I
You had
have
one brother.
two
Did he
first
play
cousins.
hockey too?
He played hockey also. Yeah, he was drafted like eighth round by the Buffalo Sabres.
Wow. But isn't that interesting? Because I'm from a big family with a lot of girls and a lot of boys. And I think when your father, I'm sure your mother did too, but your father was the hockey player.
Yeah,
When your father went to all those games, what he was just telling you without telling you was that your athletic career was just important as your brother's,
exactly. Yeah,
right?
yeah. He was an amazing supporter of everything that I
Yeah.
do. He was still alive when I first started at Pixar, and he was so excited about that.
Oh, I
He
bet.
loved animation. He was like, "Oh,
Yes.
this is the
But
best."
you have this artistic side, but he also taught you not to be afraid of competition.
Not at all. Not at all. Yeah, yeah. He treated me. I mean, there was my brother and then, 22 first cousins, most of which were boys until I was 16. And one
Wow.
played at Yale, two played at Army, one played at Princeton.
Mm.
My brother played Rensselaer Polytech. Dad played at BC, and my other uncle played at West Point. So
Wow.
it was just all boys, and he never treated me any different from, he just treated me like kind of like one of the boys. But
Amazing. There's such a lesson there. So when you began at Pixar 3 years ago, we should back up and point out for anybody who never saw Inside Out, that initial movie that came out years ago was an exploration of all of the various emotions of children, of smaller children. And now in Inside Out 2, it's really an examination of adolescent anxiety,
yes,
correct?
yes, yeah.
And so they decided to focus on a girls' ice hockey camp and what that experience might be like, how the worry and the anxiety might bubble up and how to cope with that. And so they turned to you as one of their artists, but they also knew you had this hockey background. And what were you asked to do first?
Well, and initially, with the character department, I was asked to just give a brief like interview on like about the game and how the
Mm,
equipment works and what the positions are, how many players are on the ice, because a lot of the artists never played hockey. And it's a tribute to how amazing the animators are, because many didn't play hockey and it looks really good. And then, as Kelsey Mann, the director, says often, it's like it's not a story about hockey, it's a story about a young girl that loves hockey. So
mm.
that's her thing. And I think that they did an incredible job. I mean, the hockey looks fantastic.
Wow. And I mean, you would know, you above
Yeah.
anybody else. And they were so smart to turn to you and understand that you had this other passion that you could incorporate into the art, which is just a fascinating part of your industry.
Yeah, I mean, I felt really, Kelsey's an amazing director. He's super
Yeah.
creative, he's really inclusive, he's brilliant. And it made me feel pretty special getting, kind of dragged into that and getting to talk to him and getting to talk to the writers and getting to work with the animation team.
Mm.
Yeah, it
Isn't
was
that great?
fun.
I've worked at Pixar for 3 years. And when you started to advise on Inside Out 2, I think it's great that you say they really got the hockey right, because the Pixar films are so impressive. The detail in the expression on the faces and the way it's evolved over the last couple of decades is really a marvel to watch. But then beyond just the look of the hockey, could you really identify with the girl in the movie and
Yeah,
the way she felt about hockey camp?
definitely. I had been going to dailies every day and
Yeah.
watching dailies sometimes when I'm working from home. I hadn't seen the movie as a whole. And when I saw it as a whole, it made me really nostalgic and like I
Yeah.
teared up. Like they did such a good job. I mean, she loves the game. All the girls love the game so much, and you
Yeah.
feel like you're on the ice. A friend of mine from Canada, who's a hockey player, texted me last night. He said, I went to see the film. He said, as soon as we left, I wanted to go play hockey. He
Uh,
loved it. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I bet. It really brought you back.
Yes.
And what do you think in the film? I haven't seen it obviously, but from what I understand, it incorporates anxiety, and the message is sort of that it has to live alongside all of the other emotions, right? We've got to learn to balance it all out, which is what an adolescent is learning. You had a hyper successful father who was a great athlete.
Yeah.
Did that put a lot of pressure on you? Did you feel that kind of anxiety as a player?
Yeah. I mean, he was a really good hockey player, and he knew the game, and he was at every game, and
Yeah.
he was never a negative dad. He never gave me a hard time about maybe if I wasn't playing as well as I could have, but he would be like, "Hey, what would you have done differently? How did you
See?
feel you played?" He put it back on me. And
Mm,
I mean, it's definitely you want to perform at every game, you want to always be on the first line, even though you're playing as a team,
right.
and be on that, you want to be the best that you can be.
Sure. And that I just love that he never put any sort of undue pressure on you. But just having a really successful athlete for a parent, did you always kind of feel like, oh, I want to be as great as he
Oh,
was and play at the college level too? And then
of
you achieved it.
course. Yeah, of course. I think that with him, it was never an option that I wasn't going to play hockey in college.
Yeah. Yeah.
wanted to go to art school for and he was like, there's no hockey team at, Massar. There's no hockey team at museum school.
Right. Usually at
That's not
RISD, they're
happening.
not playing hockey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he loved the game till the day he died. He would go
Mm,
to any game that he possibly could.
sure.
I had an 8U team out of Oakland, all girls, and had a tournament down in San Jose, and he got up at like 5 in the morning to go with me to the game and watch these
Oh,
kids all day. And then he wanted to stay to watch the older kids and see what the level of hockey was. Yeah, I mean,
sure.
yeah, he coached He actually coached Ted Donato, who
Oh,
plays like
yeah.
yeah,
Teddy Donato is one of the
Carter.
great
Yeah,
fantasy hockey players of all
yeah,
time.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so what do you think that families can take away from this movie that you understand played a big part in your athletic success in your family?
Yeah, well, I think that backing up a little bit, I think that we all have all of these emotions, and sometimes coming from a big family, especially a big like Irish Catholic family, sometimes you're not allowed to have all of the emotions, but I think it really
Hmm.
teaches you that you have to have all of these emotions in order to function as a whole person. And it's
Yeah.
not a bad thing to have anxiety. And especially like after the pandemic, we're seeing a lot of our young teens are having more and more anxiety. And it's the first film that I've seen where it kind of teaches you, young and old people, how to deal with this. And
Hmm.
Riley's able to get out of that with the help of her friends. And it's just, how do we embrace all of these parts of us? And all
Yeah.
of these parts of us make us a healthier, happier human. And I think that Kelsey Mann, the director, really nailed it. And he's such a compassionate, caring human. You can tell that he made this film from his heart. And we had a screening in the Bay Area, and he
Yeah.
was teared up, and he said, I wanted to make something good for people. I wanted to make something that was good for our children, and you can see that. I mean, when
Yeah.
you
Well, I think particularly right now where especially adolescents now are on screens and on their phone
yeah.
so much throughout the day, whether they're scrolling through TikTok or looking at these perfect looking lives on Instagram, it anxiety or a feeling of I don't know, inferiority is so heightened now compared to what we went through when we were that age. It's really a gift to be able to be an artistic person and give an adolescent a representation of that to balance out all the rest of it. I mean, you must feel so grateful that you've been able to combine your artistic talent and your athletic ability and your experience with all that. And your dad, and that someone at work would come to you and say, help
Oh,
us with this important film. I mean, how has this left you feeling about the whole experience?
yeah, I feel super grateful. I mean, it was so amazing to be able to help the team out with the film, and like you said, sports and art combined together. I think that those two things too can help children, like get them on
Yep.
the ice, get them on the playing field, even if they're not athletes, to be able to work as a team, to be able to like run around or skate really fast, no matter what level you're at. It's good. It's good for them,
Yeah.
and everyone can draw and everyone can at whatever level. And I think that it kind of it's a great film.
Yeah, I always enjoyed it. Matt Light of the New England Patriots.
Uh-huh.
We had fun video of him. He was such a tremendous football player, but he was always in the musical at school and high school. And
Uh,
we had him on stage singing. I think he was in oh, what's the Disney? I can show you the world. Aladdin. He was in, stage
oh my
version of that as a high school boy in his big football, but
God.
and I just think you're right. I think that kind of exposure for teenagers also helps them cope with anxiety because they take big risks, either getting up on a stage in front of their peers or playing in a high stakes game
Mhm.
that teaches you to manage anxiety along the way.
It does, and it teaches you to deal with wins and losses and all of
Yep.
these other things. And I also think that there are these rules that people maybe have in their brains that, oh,
Mm,
I'm an artist or I'm an athlete and I can't be both. And I think that you can be both. I had a art teacher at Tabor Academy,
mm,
Mr. Lavoie, who had been the men's hockey coach back in the way back machine. But he
mhm.
always said that there is a correlation between athletics and art. It's
Mm,
creativity and hand-eye coordination. So I try to tell my young girls that I coach and boys this. They're like, "Oh, I can't draw." Of course you can draw. You know what I mean? You just have
yes.
to
Yeah.
try it. And you know, I mean, it's it's nerve-wracking trying out for a team, but it's also nerve-wracking making a painting and presenting it in front of your class and having that critiqued.
Yes.
A lot.
Yes. And then it's okay to try something and not fail, but you don't have to be perfect.
Exactly. It builds.
Everything. You can have the enjoyment of doing something just for the pure enjoyment of it. What do you want people to take away from this film and the fact that you had a chance to be a part of it?
Oh my God. I just want them to go and see it because I think
Mm,
that I've seen it 4 times now, and I've never had a film where when I saw it, the next time it was better, and the next time it was better. And
mm,
it's an amazing film. And I think that everybody, young or old, is going to take something away from it.
mm.
And I think it's especially really fun for our young girls that are playing hockey. I'm hoping that I get more girls into my program after this.
Well, that might happen. Did
Yeah.
you have any role in the artwork of the film, or
Oh,
was that
no,
a
no, no,
different
no.
team? That's
Yeah,
different.
they have a whole art team,
Yeah.
and yeah.
So what do you do there on a daily basis?
It's called a character technical director.
Uh-huh.
So we get designs from the art team and
Mhm.
we sculpt the characters, and then
Wow.
we rig the characters, and then we work very closely with animation to make sure that they have all of the controls that they need to be able to, you know, in that situation, make the characters skate, you know,
Mm,
move the face into all of these crazy expressions. And depending on the character, it's sometimes more challenging. And I think that, you know, with the hockey background and sports background and my dad being such a strong role model for me, you know, it's like you can never give up, Tracey. If it gets hard, we're not giving up.
yeah. Yeah. And you know so much about physiology as well,
Yes,
anatomy.
yes, yes.
But also talk about you have a job that a young person wouldn't even know exists. What an
Oh,
exciting,
yeah.
opportunity to explain to your students who you're also coaching hockey to.
Yeah, I like to bring I've brought I did a field trip to Pixar with the girls that play in my
Oh,
development program. And like I said to them, at Pixar, everything's done in-house. So the writers are there, the sound engineers are there, the recordings are done there, the stories written there, the all of the art is drawn there, sculpted there, animated there. Everything is there. So there in the
amazing.
there's a whole support team of, you know, security, chefs, you know, HR, producers, direct, you know,
Oh.
it's like anything that a kid could want to do, any dream that they have is like within those walls.
Right. Amazing. And a little bit of Boston is
And a
there.
little bit of Boston. Yes, yes.
Tracey Roberts, thanks so much. I'm sure your mom and dad, wherever they are so proud of you.
Thank
And
you.
congratulations on all your success and really looking forward to seeing the movie. Thanks for taking the time to do this.
Thanks so much.